So Glover Teixeira is about to make his title defense against Yuri Prohaska after winning the belt at a very, older age, I guess would be the way to go. But he isn't the first to do it in his 40s, as Randy the Natural Couture, the former light heavyweight champion at the time, came out of retirement to fight Tim Sylvia over the UFC heavyweight championship. So UFC 68 took place in Columbus, Ohio, March 3rd, 2007. It had a 540,000 buy rate and a live gate of over 3 million. It had a classic Mike team of Mike Goldberg and Joe Rogan. And honestly, rewatching this, I kind of miss Mike Goldberg sometimes. The event took place at a kind of an interesting time, as Pride had dissolved at this point, and the UFC was in the middle of a big, almost Pride invasion, you could say. Crow Cop and Rampage made their debuts at UFC 67, and at UFC 70, Dana White would come out and announce the signing of Big Nog Nogueira. Times were changing for the company, as this influx of talent would kind of create waves, as a lot of these Pride signings went on to become champions, like Rampage, Big Nog, Shogun. So there's a couple of these signings were, and great fights from a lot of them too. But enough talk. All right, this card had some bangers, so let's just talk about them instead. Early thoughts on the prelims. Former WEC champion Jamie Varner choked out Jason Gilliam in what would be the fighter's last UFC appearance for 5 years. John Fitch, surprisingly, didn't put me to sleep, as he got a finish over Luigi Fioravanti with a rear naked choke in the second round. One of his 4 finishes in his illustriously long career in the UFC, easily earning him the status as a finishing machine. Okay, not really. Matt Hamill finally TKO'd Rex Holman in the first round, improving to 4-0. But in his very next fight, he would be on the wrong side of a decision against Michael Bisping. I think it's widely considered a big robbery. I would imagine so. But let's get to the main card. The opening fight on the main card is a light heavyweight fight between Renato Babalu Sobral and Jason Lambert. So Lambert was actually coming off a TKO loss to Rashad Evans, but he had a good streak before that. His streak was good enough to kind of warrant his place on, opening the card, and against Babalu, who just came off a failed title shot, losing his rematch to Chuck Liddell, the prime chucker himself at the time. So the first round, Babalu lands a good inside low kick, swarms him, takes him down, dominating groundwork. A couple of chokes, and some of the grounded pound actually cut the eye a little bit of Lambert, some blood, but Lambert, to his credit, has a ton of heart. Just kind of powers through it. Eventually he gets a scramble, and when they're clinched up, he just starts throwing some bombs. Just big right hand, just kind of stuns Babalu and at one point, and when he goes for a takedown, he doesn't get it, so he just kind of flops to his back. Lambert follows him, and some great ground and pound, and the round ends. In the second round, they just kind of go back to a pretty good pace. Babalu tries to get in with a lead knee. Lambert actually takes Babalu down, and he is just landing great ground and pound, good elbows, punches, even doing some things that a lot of people don't do from top position that I really like. Grinding your forearm across their face, awesome. Can openers from top position, and even a cheeky nodder from top position. Big John stands them up. Instantly, Babalu goes for another ill-fated lead step-in knee, gets cracked by a left hook, goes down hard, a follow-up shot, ends the fight, KO win for Jason Lambert. I give this fight an 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed it, but I don't know if I would hunt it down. It's not a fight I would recommend hunting down for some reason. I don't know why. Couldn't tell you why. But after this, Jason Lambert lost 5 straight, 3 in the UFC, which got him cut, and his last fight was in 2013 in Bellator. Babalu, on the other hand, fought David Heath in his next fight in a disgusting display where he battered him, bloodied him, choked him unconscious with an anaconda choke, and wouldn't let go. Disgusting, big PR disaster. The UFC cut him, never fought in the UFC again. And in 2019, Babalu did come forward and say that he is suffering from effects of CTE. So, despite the Heath fight, I do wish him the best of luck and health in his future. Next up, we have Matt Hughes taking on Chris Lytle at welterweight. And I love Matt Hughes. I want to open with that because this dude was my childhood welterweight, basically. He's still the guy I picture at welterweight. When someone goes welterweight, I picture Matt Hughes for some reason. And I still have him as my second best welterweight of all time. Get that Usman stuff out of here. He's not even in he's barely in my top 5 right now, okay? Let's cool the brakes on that. So round 1, Lytle trying to get like some big shots on the stand-up going. Hughes takes him down. Lytle does have his neck, but after jockeying for a better position, Hughes does escape, gets side control, and from here, it's just all Matt Hughes. Big shots landing, great elbows, and Lytle is doing enough to, essentially out of too much danger. At the end of the round, Lytle does throw his legs up for like a reverse triangle attempt. So Hughes takes this opportunity to try and rip Chris Lytle's arm off, goes for an armbar, and as the horn sounds, he breaks it free. The second round, things get pretty spicy for a moment. So Hughes gets Lytle back down to the floor and escapes another guillotine, gets side control once again, starts landing some big shots. Suddenly, Lytle explodes, and he sweeps to put Hughes on his back, even getting the half guard. So Hughes, defending from half guard, goes for a Kimura attempt. He overcommits it, though. Lytle counters by going for an armbar, just like Matt Hughes did when GSP overcommitted to a Kimura from bottom. When Lytle doesn't get the armbar, Hughes gets on top. Wow, what a sequence. That was nuts. Final round, and this is where Hughes really pulls ahead substantially. He gets an early takedown. For the remainder of the fight, just lands good shots, maintaining side control. Lytle really just couldn't do anything at this point. Because I like the first 2 rounds a lot, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10 as well. The fight is just an example of Matt Hughes being a true master of ground and pound. All you youngins love to bring up Khabib, but that's just recency bias, I'm going to be honest. Because in reality, I myself even kind of forget that Matt Hughes has some of the best ground and pound ever. Dude was just a master of slamming shots into opponents from top position. Hughes did retire in 2011, and in 2015, he was struck by a train, nearly dying and sustaining serious head and spinal injuries. He survived, but it was a scary moment for MMA fans everywhere. But in 2018, he returned as a guest of honor at the Stevens Choi Fight Night event to a huge pop, and I remember getting really misty-eyed watching that live. It was awesome. Lytle would go on to alternate wins and losses for a while into a really solid streak that was cut short by a short-notice debuting Brian Ebersol. And he also called it quits in 2011, I think like a month prior to Matt Hughes. And if you haven't heard of Chris Lytle before, seriously, hunt that guy's career down. Legitimately has an argument for the most exciting fighter in MMA ever. Recency bias has left this guy's career kind of hidden for most fight fans. Go watch his career. It's awesome. And then Jason MacDonald takes on Rich Franklin in the next fight. So Rich Franklin had just suffered the second loss of his career. He lost the belt to Anderson Silva, and his first loss was Lyoto Machida years prior. And now he's making a return to his home state of Ohio to take on a 2-0 in the UFC, Jason MacDonald. But he did just choke out Chris Lieben in his previous fight, who was highly ranked in the UFC at the time. Like, he was always like in that top 5 around this point in time. Oh man, though, this was a lopsided match. The first round is kind of just like a one-sided ass whooping, as Rich Franklin is just constantly sidestepping MacDonald, who wants to get this fight to the floor, but he's just getting clocked by these big looping lead check hooks. The 2 big moments of the fight saw Rich just dump MacDonald on his back, landed some hard shots while standing over MacDonald and just clobbering him with some big bombs. And then MacDonald does get a takedown, but Franklin sweeps him with butterfly guard and just ends the round on top, smashing him. MacDonald's trying to get some takedowns. It actually does look like he's going to get his back. Rich just dumps him off, just pounds him from top position for the rest of the round. Punches, elbows just raining down from mount, back mount, and then the round ends. And in between rounds, MacDonald's corner does stop the fight, something that should be normalized in today's day and age. So I give this fight, my rating for it is a 6.5 out of 10. I initially had a 6 out of 10, but, kind of going back, I do like this fight a little bit more. It really is one-sided, and not in the most fun showcase way, but I could see people really liking this fight. I did enjoy it, that being said. I didn't hate it. I did enjoy it. Finally, we have our co-main event. Martin Kampmann, Drew McFedries. Before a young Anthony Johnson was blasting and decapitating dudes at 170, there was another guy known for super insane power that was either going to win or lose really quickly. And that guy was Drew McFedries. Dude had some monster power back in the day. His fights probably averaged like 3 minutes his whole career, if I had to guess. Martin Kampmann, on the other hand, he was a boy of mine. You know, he's retired, but I still want to like count him as one of my big boys because I loved his technical striking, and he had a really crazy finishing, you know, kind of streak in him, even at 170 pounds. And this fight is quick, but a war. It's awesome. Out the gate, McFedries lands just a really good leaping left hand, stuns Kampmann, who fires back with a left high kick. Kampmann does get dropped momentarily, but for the most part, he is having success with these high kicks and his counterboxing. Eventually, Kampmann does land some big shots that stun McFedries, and now he's the one pressuring, as McFedries have been pressuring him the whole fight prior. And he gets a massive throw to the ground from side control. Eventually, Kampmann does lock in the arm triangle choke, and McFedries goes out. But it was kind of weird because Herb Dean like wiggled his arm 3 times to make sure he was unconscious. It kind of reminded me of like professional wrestling when like, you know, Undertaker has someone like a Hell's Gate and you raise their arm 3 times. Bad early showings of bad reffing from Herb Dean. But I'd give this fight an 8.5 out of 10. It's a really good fight for as long as it lasts, and I just love Martin Kampmann, obviously, so there could be some bias. Kampmann had one more win at middleweight before being TKO'd by Nate Marquardt. After that, he went down to welterweight, where he just had a crazy career with some great performances and fights before calling it quits in 2016. And this is another guy who is a candidate for the most exciting fighter in MMA history. Hunt this guy's career down, seriously. Finally, the stage is set. The main event of the evening is the UFC Heavyweight Championship between Tim Sylvia and Randy Couture. Randy Couture, at this point, hasn't fought in over a year, with him retiring after his last fight, him losing the trilogy match to Chuck Liddell. But more so, he hadn't fought at heavyweight in over 5 years. Tim Sylvia, meanwhile, was just enjoying his second reign as UFC champion. His reign wasn't popular, and neither was his style with the fans, but he was still on a 6-fight winning streak with 2 straight title defenses. And Couture was a massive underdog in this fight. People were expecting him to get demolished. This is widely considered to be one of the bigger upsets at the time, and it's kind of crazy to think in hindsight when you put both of their careers together. But despite being the underdog, you wouldn't know it by the crowd reaction, because the crowd explodes for Randy Couture. It's just kind of deafening at times watching him walk out. It's awesome. But how does Randy Couture prove the odds makers wrong? And after this, Randy swarms, great shots, slams Sylvia to the mat, takes his back, looking for chokes and just controlling Sylvia the rest of the round. The second round opens with Sylvia seemingly regaining his legs back under him, and he's using some feints to kind of assert his reach advantage. And it's awesome because Randy actively doesn't care. He still goes for that inside low kick overhand right. It stuns Sylvia, who gets clinched up. After some clinch work back and forth, Randy takes Sylvia down and hammers him. Big John stands him up with a massive boo from the crowd. Randy is using his head movements and looping outside hooks to counter the straights from Sylvia, which are constantly landing. These hooks are landing on the awkward giant just over and over. And as the round is ending, Randy takes Sylvia down again, almost as if to make a statement. And you would think, though, with like the threat of the takedown, Sylvia would just smoke Couture on the feet. Well, that's not the case, because in the third round, they never touch the ground. Couture just dominates the striking. He uses his solid head movement and his super underrated boxing just to pick Sylvia apart. The shots don't have that one-punch power, but the volume is just outrageous. 3 rounds up for Randy Couture at this point. A super smooth takedown for Randy in this round, and after some great control, Big John stands him up. And then he just dominates the herky-jerky boxing of Sylvia for most of the round, and lands another smooth takedown. It was like the wrestling equivalent of a hot knife through butter. In this final round, another clinic. Couture just takes him down early, and Sylvia is exhausted. He is just getting pounded on. He's too tired to keep Couture in guard anymore. Couture just effortlessly passing guard, gets mount at one point, lands big shots. Sylvia does scramble to his feet momentarily, gets taken down instantly. And Couture just closes the fight out, landing grounded pound on a broken, swollen, and tired Tim Sylvia. And this is where the coolest thing about the entire night happens.
Randy the Natural Couture, UFC Hall of Famer, is going to become, once again, the heavyweight champion of the world!
That's probably the loudest I've heard a crowd be in a long time. Maybe, like, up there, like, ever. You know, I mean, not just combat sports, too. Bruce Buffer goes to announce the scorecards, Dana gives the belt to Randy, and Joe Rogan with hair is just flabbergasted on the mic trying to interview Randy Couture. And Couture utters what is probably one of my favorite post-fight interview quotes ever. Not bad for an old man. Not bad at all, Randy. For my rating of this fight, I just gotta give it a 9 out of 10. I mean, the action in this fight is a little slow at times, but it's the weight behind it, the significance of the moment. It's something truly beautiful to behold. There's no other word for it. Randy would defend his belt one more time against Gabriel Gonzaga before losing to Brock Lesnar, but he did continue to have an incredible career before retiring at 47. He was blackballed by the UFC for working with Bellator during their little Monday Night Wars reenactment, but it can't be said enough how special he was. Winning the title at 43 is no easy feat, and it's something that should be talked about for years and years to come. I mean, obviously, we're talking about it here. So, my final thoughts on this card. Really good. Great pick by you guys. As I enjoyed every fight, basically, even on the prelims. Even all the prelims I enjoyed a lot. I would give this fight an overall A rating, as it's a card that I feel like should be shown to fans of the sport who only really watch, like, they only started watching, you know, circa like 2016 or so. There are a lot, like, it's important. I feel like I brought up recency bias a lot. I feel like that is a negative aspect of our sport. I think it's important to understand our history. There are a lot of big names on this card, like Matt Hughes, Rich Franklin, Randy Couture, that people should talk about their storied careers, as well as names who aren't massive but just have just awesome careers in terms of entertainment and quality, like Chris Lytle, Martin Kampmann on this card as well. So I think this is a card for everybody. Anyways, that's it for me. Be sure to check out all our amazing content on this channel, as well as the second channel, so you guys can see my ugly mug recap every UFC fight immediately after it happens, basically. And this is Joe with the INC. Thank you for watching.